In this bag is my original Game Boy that I got back in 1990. This is the one which my parents bought me. I think I was about 7 or 8 years old at the time, and I've still got it, and it still works. There is a little bit of an issue with it though, in that, yeah, it has yellowed a little bit over the years, but also that screen is absolutely busted. So yeah, it works, but you can't actually play any games on it. How do I know it works? Well, if I put some batteries in and put in a cartridge, you get all the sounds and all the buttons work and everything, and well, if you were playing blind, you could play a game. So as you can see, the screen was absolutely busted, but we're in a rather lucky situation here where it really is just the screen that doesn't work. All the buttons work, the contacts for the cartridge works, you can play a game, albeit blind. So what we're going to do is we're going to refurbish my original Game Boy from my own youth. And you know what? We're going to make it better than you. So hello fellow gamers, and this is my personal Game Boy refurb. Okay, so this is my original Game Boy. As you can see, it's a little bit yellowed, and that screen is just, it's gone. It's absolutely gone. There's a few things that we're going to do today. First of all, we're going to replace, well, we're going to replace that screen first and foremost. That is the biggest thing that we're going to change here. We're also going to do some cleaning up around inside, because naturally this thing is going to be absolutely filthy on the inside, if the outside is anything to go by. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to put this in a whole new shell. And the shell that I've gone for is this lovely translucent one that I've got from Amazon, and it arrived the next day, so that's just great. Right, well, no more delays because I'm really excited to do this. Let's get on with it. So when it comes to replacing the shell, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need, we're not going to need all of these battery contacts. We're just going to need this one and this one, which I think are on the main board anyway. This one and these two are already in the other case, so we can just go ahead and use those. So the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to take out all of the tri-wing screws that are on the back of this console. This is the very first time that I've opened this Game Boy, and it's nearly 30 years old. And, you know, given the state of the screen, I have absolutely no idea what it's all going to look like. I hope it's not going to be too bad, but I don't know. Guess we'll find out in a moment. Ah! Well, there's a little bit of corrosion in there. So we can give that a bit of a clean, but you know, the rest of it is actually looking rather good. There's also some corrosion around the battery contacts, because for some while I did have some old batteries in here, so that needs cleaning up too. Yeah, as you can see, on this side, it actually looks all very clean. Not barely a mark on it. Not barely anything at all. That's looking really good. But of course, if we're going to replace the shell, we're going to need to take all of the innards out, so we're going to need our Phillips head screwdriver to take those out now. And there we go. There's the inner back of my old Game Boy, which I've never seen before. But that's great. Hopefully we won't need this bit anymore. So here we go, here's the innards of our lovely original Game Boy. It all looks a little bit dusty, but otherwise it actually looks okay. I don't see anything wrong with the traces. Just checking the capacitors, and nothing's bulging or anything, so that's good. Right, so what we'll do is we'll pop this aside for now. Okay, we've got a few more screws, Phillips screws, that we need to remove from here. Now this is where, if there's going to be damage, I reckon that's where most of it's going to be, because that's where the leaky screen is, or the broken screen. I'm starting to think it's all self-contained inside, like that module, that screen module. so it hasn't spread out anywhere else. And you'd think, actually, you know, look how pristine this is. This looks absolutely pristine. And you'd think if it had leaked elsewhere, it would be everywhere. It would even be leaking out of the headphone jack and out of various other holes. So I'm starting to think, yeah, it's probably all self-contained. So we're pretty lucky in that regard. So there we go. Right, it's popped out. And there we go. There's our front. Oh, drop that. Here's our front PCB with the smashed screen. Now you can see exactly where the impact was. It was about here. So we just pop that aside. And what we're going to be doing as well is we're going to be using the existing buttons. And we're going to give those a... Oh my goodness, that is disgusting. Yeah, I've only got myself to blame. That is filthy. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these buttons and we're just going to put them aside in a bowl of warm soapy water just to let them soak a little bit. Right, we're going to leave those soaking for a moment while I just reveal the screen that I'm going to be using. It is a, well, it says on the label here, a Game Boy IPS LCD screen by Rips. It's the third version of this screen. I've heard there were plenty of issues with the first couple of versions where the colours were being swapped around. Basically, you've got the dark becomes light and light becomes dark because of an issue with the wiring. But that shouldn't be an issue with this new screen now. Now the idea of replacing this old screen with an IPS screen is, it's very difficult to get hold of an original Game Boy screen without buying just a whole new Game Boy, in which case why refurb this one at all if you can just buy a new one-ish. And secondly, the picture quality is much better. It's much sharper, it's got a backlit display and it looks so much nicer. The games are going to look fantastic, and this is what I meant when I said this Game Boy is going to look better than new. Now the whole idea with this is that we not only replace the screen, we replace this entire PCB. The only thing that I've read up that we need to do with this, modification wise, is we need to desolder the speaker here so that we can then solder it onto this one. And the speaker, as we heard earlier, is fine. It's a bit dirty, but it's fine. So we're going to need to give this speaker a clean before we move it over to the other PCB. So what we'll do is we'll just apply some isopropanol, and since we're doing some cleaning, we'll clean the other board as well, just make sure everything is all fine and dandy. So while I'm cleaning this board, I just want to give a shout out and thanks to Elliot at the Retro Future for giving me the idea of doing this on my own Game Boy. He cleans up Game Boys and refurbishes them all the time, so if you like Game Boy refurbs and are interested in the process behind it, go and check him out. I've got a link to his channel below. Now we can get to desoldering the speaker. It's only 2 wires, quick and easy job. Right, well now that we've desoldered the speaker, this, well, can I suppose throw away, or unless maybe we get a different kind of screen mod on this one, who knows. Now we can go ahead and solder that speaker onto the new PCB. And now we can start assembling the screen, putting the screen and its circuit board the right way into the 3D printed mount. Okay, now it comes to putting everything into this case, but we need to make a couple of modifications to this first for the new screen to fit in. First of all, what we need to do is we need to remove these 2 screw pegs which are in the original case. And we also need to remove one of these little indents on the inside of the case, because otherwise that screen ain't going to fit in there, as you can see here. So I just got my Dremel and went to town on these, but you could achieve the same results with a pair of side cutters. Just be very careful. And as you can see, the screen now fits. So that now fits in, which is absolutely fantastic. Now it looks like the next thing that we're going to need to sand down is on the next half of the shell, particularly this little lip here, because what we're doing here is we are replacing like the front half of the PCB along with the screen, which means that it also comes with its own contrast wheel, but as you can see there, that is kind of flush with the edge of the shell. So having that little lip there is going to apply pressure to it and it's not going to work very well. So we're going to need to remove this little lip as well. There you go. Lip should now be gone. Right, well now that's been done, what we need to do now is we need to go and get our buttons, which have been soaking for a little bit, give them a proper good clean and get them installed. Now just to make sure that all the nooks and crannies were clean on these pieces, I went over everything again with a cotton bud and some isopropanol. Just want to make sure as well that these rubber contacts are clean for the D-pad and the buttons. They didn't show any any issues when I was trying it out earlier, but it's better to be safe than sorry. If we've got it open, we may as well do it. Yeah, see? Now you're probably asking me, well, why are you using the existing buttons? Does your new case come with new ones? Well, it does actually. It does come with some new ones. There's the new D-pad there, and new A and B buttons. They're all one colour scheme, and I wanted to keep the original colour scheme. So that's why I'm sticking with the original buttons. Okay, cool. Now with those cleaned off, we can go ahead and drop them in here. Oh, that peeling feeling. Now we can finally screw in that front PCB. If you're doing this as well, be aware that this PCB takes 4 less screws, so there are going to be some spares left over. Looks like that's in there now, and that is starting to look like a Game Boy. And next what we need to do is we need to place the rear PCB into the rear part of the shell. And just need to screw that in. Well, before we do, so there we go, we've got our two halves now put together. The next bit is to connect the two together using this here ribbon cable. Putting in the ribbon cable on both sides took longer than I'd care to admit. I think I was at this for at least 5 minutes. I didn't want to run the risk of breaking it, so I took my time. There we go. That took a while, but it's now connected. But I think now we're in a position where we can just close it up. And now all we need to do now is just screw the whole thing, the outer shell, back together. Right, okay, we've got it together. There's only one thing, well, okay, 2 things left now. Give the screen a little wipe and then get the new screen protector on. Okay, time for the pièce de résistance. We're going to put on the new front plate. So there was one that came with this case, which is, it does look absolutely spot on, but the thing is though, we're using a new IPS screen, and this is plastic. You can see me, I'm able to bend it there. This is just plastic. I'm not sure that's going to protect it all that well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for the glass one that I ordered. They look more or less the same. Okay, this one's a slightly lighter tint, probably more in keeping with the original. But what we can do is we can pop this in here, and we'll have a proper glass protective screen for our new IPS screen. So, let's just peel this off. Oop. You can tell I'm using a bit of force there just to push that glass screen protector on there. The final flourish. Oh, beautiful. And there we go. We have our new housed Game Boy, essentially. It's still running the same like base Game Boy board that I got nearly 30 years ago. Buttons look like they're making good contact, feel like they're making good contact. We've got a fresh new glass screen. Let's give this a whirl. Gonna stick in Legend of Zelda. Let's just see how that looks. That looks amazing. I don't know if you can pick it up on the camera. I really don't know if you can pick it up on the camera. But look, it's backlit. It is sharp as anything. It's so sharp and it's so clear, and it's the same size as the original DMG screen as well, so we could go for that. I can notice that, yeah, there is a little bit of a larger gap on the top than there is on the others, so it could be better off like repositioned further up. Now the beauty of this screen as well is the contrast wheel has been replaced with a fresh new wheel, so instead of dealing with the contrast, it actually handles the brightness. So you can make it brighter, you can make it dimmer. If you press in on the contrast wheel, go through various different colours as well. You can even have original Game Boy green. Actually, that's probably closer. Yeah, that is probably closer. But I don't know, for me, I'd probably stick with this one most of the time. Let's just check and make sure that the connections are working okay. Oh. Yep. That is working just fine. So there you have it. There is the completed... Oh, actually, no. Hang on a minute. There is one more thing that I need to put in. Oh, I've had a Game Boy longer without one than I have with one. And that is the connector cover. There we go. But yeah, that is a completed, now see-through Game Boy, and it's running off an original board. Let's try another game with it. So let's go with a classic. What's great now as well is we've got it's a backlit screen now, and not only that, but it's a heck of a lot sharper. Absolutely brilliant. Sadly, I can't do a before because, well, it was absolutely busted. But what we've done here is we have recovered a broken original Game Boy, and it's now working again, and even better than before. You hear a lot about IPS screens being really good because there's no ghosting, absolutely no ghosting at all, whereas the original Game Boy was riddled with ghosting issues. Let's stick another game in here, which would have been difficult, really difficult to see on an original Game Boy. I mean, I still completed it originally on an original Game Boy. That is Donkey Kong Land. So there we go. Oh, that is much easier to look at. Hey, there we go. I spent much of the next week trying out my new refurbished Game Boy with a number of different games. Stuff like Zelda, of course, Tetris, Mario Land 2, Killer Instinct and Donkey Kong amongst others. Overall, I found the experience with this new IPS screen to be phenomenal. Now, putting aside the fact that I fixed my Game Boy that was previously broken and therefore couldn't be used anyway, the IPS screen definitely makes the original DMG Game Boy playable again by modern standards. The pixels are sharp, there's no ghosting during movement, and that backlight is a godsend. There were so many times when I was young that I wished my OG Game Boy had a backlight, and now, nearly 30 years later, I'm able to live that dream. I did encounter an unusual banding effect on some games, like with Donkey Kong. It seemed like the pixels just kept carrying on after an object was placed on the screen. Thankfully, this was something that I didn't notice on a vast majority of my games anyway. The Game Boy's innards fitted into the new shell perfectly, and it now looks better than before. After a couple of days though, I noticed a couple of cracks develop on the front plate, but I wasn't too fussed about that since it was so cheap anyway. Plus, I'd rather do the modifications needed to fit the new IPS screen on an aftermarket shell rather than my original one. So in short, if you've got a broken Game Boy or want to liven up your currently working one, definitely consider mods like these. The results can be better than you would think, and they can breathe life back into an old childhood favourite. Have you done any mods on your DMG Game Boy? Show them off to us all in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like or even subscribing to see more from me. But anyway, thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.